Chase Burns looked absolutely electric in his start against the Yanks, and Christian Moore's just lighting it up. I got 10 names you're going to want to add on today's action-packed episode of Locked On Fantasy Baseball.
You are Locked On Fantasy Baseball, your daily fantasy baseball podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, fantasy baseball fanatics, and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Baseball podcast, brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, we are number one source for fantasy baseball knowledge, and thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. I'm your host, Matthew Ane, here with my awesome co-host that's a little bit worse at me than fantasy baseball, Dominic Martino. If you're watching on YouTube, please hit the bell below to subscribe to the channel and give you a notification every time we drop a new episode. And if you're listening on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you're getting your audio source, make sure to subscribe and also leave us a 5-star rating and review. It really helps out the show. But I got a great episode for you today. We got 10 names that you're going to want to add. We got 5 hitters, 5 pitchers, like always. And Dom was so excited to talk about Chase Burns that I had to open up the show and he had to give up his duties. Okay, like I wasn't want to talk about him. But all right, Dom, without further ado, take the drool, wipe it off your mouth, and go ahead and talk about Chase Burns, the starting pitcher for the Cincinnati Reds.
All right, Matt, my brother, I appreciate you taking the duty of opening today, and you did a wonderful job. So you know what? I might have to let you do it more often because you did do a bang-up job there, my brother.
Thank you.
But you know what? Chase Burns, I watched it. He pitched against my Yankees, and man, it for me as a Yankee fan, it's hard not to like the kid. He's Italian. He's a Derek Jeter fan. He's a Yankee fan. It's like, oh my God, you already like this kid. Then
you
he goes out.
Him?
After this, I don't know, maybe. So with Chase Burns, strikes out the first 5 batters he faces. Then he goes 6 to 7 with the first 7 batters he faces with strikeouts. Battled back from some nice 3-0 counts. And the reason I wanted to talk about him again this week was you might look at that stat line and some of the underlying stuff and be like, oh, he didn't pitch that good. No. Chase Burns was great. Yankees got to him, was a couple of singles. Ben Rice homered. It was a really, really good start. Went 5 innings, gave up 3 runs, 8 total strikeouts. The whip was a 1.20. But in your first big league start, I don't know how many guys, if any, ever have struck out 6 out of their first 7 batters. The slider was working. The fastball was working. He was getting up to about 99 on that fastball, averaging around 98, 97. Didn't really throw the curveball. Was surprised. That big curveball is a good strikeout pitch for him. Didn't really show it off. Threw the changeup a little bit more than the curve, which is abnormal for Burns. But the profile to start his big league career looks absolutely dominant. Just to go out there and do what he did against the Yankees, got Aaron Judge, struck out Trent Grisham 3 times. Just looked really, really good for a rookie pitcher. He's up to 60% owned on Yahoo. He's getting there, but he's available. He's available in 40% of leagues. He's a must-add. Pause the podcast. Go add Chase Burns, Cincinnati Red starting pitcher. He was the number 2 pitching prospect in all of baseball before he got called up. I believe he was number 7 or 8 overall. I might be a little off on my numbers there, but Chase Burns looks great to start his big league career. Must add for me. Matt, I think you feel the same way.
I do. I was pretty impressed. The movement even on the stat sheet, even though it said it didn't have such good movement, the thing still looked ridiculous. I'm really impressed. Not too many pitchers come out like this and say, hey, I'm here, especially against the Yankees and going up against Judge and things like that. It's a tough opening start, but I think he's going to be here to stay and he's going to be an elite arm. Like we were talking about on the mustache episode, I think earlier in the week when he got the call, or it was last week, where, we're still going to have to be cautious of his starts because of where he pitches until he kind of gets a groove. And, I can kind of put him in the same league as Hunter Green. But ultimately, the upside is definitely to be there. And I think that we're going to be talking about him for years to come. He's going to be a great pitcher for the rest of the year, as long as he can stay up. That's on the Reds as well. But let's move on. Let's talk about Ryan Kirkling, relief pitcher for the Philadelphia Phillies. And quite honestly, you know what? He might have the job now. Romano is just sucking pretty bad. And Kirkling is an interesting pitcher in general. If you're not familiar with his pitching profile and things like that, he has actually great movement on his pitches. And with Kirkling, he's just somebody that is homegrown and somebody I think that they want to have the job, and that's the key part here. he's getting called in big situations, and you know what? If they can't lock down, who's going to be the closer, at least by committee, getting the saves that for the Phillies might come in way more spurts than anybody else, and might have as many opportunities at saves as other teams that aren't as good as the Phillies, and that is still going to balance out a B level starting closer versus a Ryan Kirkland that's even in a committee. So I want to go ahead and add him. He's 25% owned, and you know what? It's definitely worth just holding him on the roster and seeing if you can get a couple saves out of him, maybe even one a week. And one a week from here on out is a great bonus and worth that in itself, because there's some weeks where closers don't even get one. And if you can somehow take the job out and shine over the whole bullpen, and they don't bring anybody in July, then Kirkling might be the guy for the rest of the year. So I'm adding Kirkling at least to see if he could take advantage and at least get one a week.
Matt, very, very well said. And, as you were kind of alluding to earlier, I think Kirkling has a chance to run away with this. Hasn't given up a run since May. Has been really good down the stretch here. The thing is, the command's always been Kirkling's big thing. If he can get around it, the whip's at a 137 this year. A couple too many walks, couple too many hits. If and he's still young enough. He's still young enough, at 24 years old, where he can figure this control thing out and just ride it out. Matt, you talked about it, homegrown there. Phillies have a lot of faith in this kid. Matt, I'm kind of just going to move on. You did a great job on Kirkling. Pick him up. He's going to get some saves here. He has the last two for the Phillies, so there's a chance he sweeps in and takes it away from Romano and Matt Strom, who are both a bit older. So Kirkling, go out there, snag him if you need some potential save sources from a good team. Let's move on to a starting pitcher here. Let's talk about Matthew Liberator, starting pitcher of the St. Louis Cardinals. Almost said Arizona Cardinals. Football on the brain. All right, so with Liberator, he was injured for a little bit, dealt with a little bit of injury, had a couple of bad starts there back to back, end of May, beginning of June. But listen, he's rallied back. Last two starts from Liberator have been great. On June 17th, went out against the White Sox, 6 innings, got the win, 4 strikeouts, gave up a couple earned runs, 0.83 whip in that one. Then against the Cubs, he went 7 strong, got the win, 5 strikeouts, gave up an earned run, had a 1 whip. Well, look, that's a good team. Go out there and do it against the Cubs, recovering from the injury. Liberator was a pretty high-end prospect, not too high, but in the Cardinals organization, he was pretty high-end. 3.96 ERA, 1.15 whip, 86 innings, 71 strikeouts. He's not really going to be a big strikeout guy, but he does have 5 wins in his 15 starts so far. Off the waiver wire, it's tough to find good pitching right now, guys. They're a dime a dozen. Liberator is only 37% owned. And listen, a guy that has the prospect pedigree, had a really good start to the season. The injuries threw him off a little bit. But listen, he's bounced back in the last 2, especially against the Cubs in his last one. And next time out, he is going to face the Guardians. Not a bad matchup at all. Listen, you can get around Jose Ramirez and a couple of other guys on that team, and it should be an easier matchup for Matthew Liberator. I'm going to pick him up and throw him out there in his next start at least. And I think he could be one of those guys I talk about a lot. Listen, sometimes you pick guys up and you look back at the end of the season, oh, wow, they're still riding around at the end of my rotation because they wind up having a pretty good year. I think Liberator could be one of those guys.
Yeah. I'm not a fan of Liberator's talent, but I'm a fan of how he's been performing recently. The Cleveland matchup isn't 100% scary, but, Jose Ramirez has been, a guy that pretty much can torment any lineup. So I'm not going to roll him out there if my ERA is in great shape. I think I'll kind of pass on him. But if my ERA is at mid-tier and I don't really care about my ERA at this point, then I'll roll him out and see if he can do it. Or if I just literally am so behind in pitching categories that I need to catch up, then you know what, you just got to pretty much just roll him out there. But I don't know about long-term value for me, at least, just because at any point in time it can fall off the rails. But before we move on and I talk about Trevor Rogers, who's been interesting this year, I want to get into this break, and then I'll bring up Trevor Rogers, Frankie Montas, his first start against the Braves the other day, and so much more coming up after this. Get the supplies you need from the site that's made for skilled traders, Supply House. Whether you're into plumbing, HVAC, electrical work, Supply House is a reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources with the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from over 400-plus top brands, you'll find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. And for trade pros looking for an extra edge, their Trade Master program offers exclusive perks like dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage. Now is your turn. Join the Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use the promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Hey, if you want a little bit more than we offer in this 30-minute podcast, check us out. I'm actually become a member of the Insider Track. There we go. Quite honestly, look, you want to get ahead of your league on these amazing prospects that have been getting called up left and right, like Christmas. You're going to want to get on that Insider Track because we get it out there as fast as we humanly can, which is usually faster than your league mates. On top of that, we give you, who to prioritize on the waiver wire episode like today. You'll be able to get key facts or stats that we think you should be highlighting on a daily after every episode. And if you have some questions for Dom and I, we'll be able to answer them within the first 24 hours. So links in the description below, and we're giving you a little extra bonus. You also get a free 2 weeks. So check us out. Links in the description below. Let's get back into it. Let's talk about Trevor Rogers, who I mentioned right before the break, playing for those Baltimore Orioles. Now, Rogers isn't starting over the weekend, and you don't have to make a decision till Sunday because he's pitching on Monday against the Rangers. And he's been up and down. But here's the key part that I like. He's going up against the Rangers again. And last time he went out against the Rangers on June 23rd, which was last Monday, he handled them pretty well. Went 8 innings. He got 4 Ks, got the win, no earned runs, a .38 whip, and got the quality start, of course. So if he can do that again against the Rangers team that honestly would have thought would have been a little bit better. Simeon's been up and down. He's had his peak weeks, but really hasn't been great. Corey Seager, lackluster at best. Josh Young, honestly, I just kicking myself about that guy wholeheartedly. Wyatt Langford just can't seem to stay away from the first aid kit. And I think Trevor Rogers actually stands a chance to have a really good start out there. So for me, I'm adding him with him being 4% owned. So this is definitely a deep league cut, but also I think he's even valuable in 12-man and 10-man leagues to open up your week on the right foot. So Trevor Rogers is a must add for me.
Yeah, man. Rogers is interesting. Former, high-end prospect with Marlins when he was coming up. Had a really good rookie season and then never really found his footing after that. But I will say this. Fastball velocity way up, almost back to his normal, when he was coming up, sitting around 93.7 this year. He used to be closer to, 95. But last year he was throwing 92. So, he's up almost 2 miles an hour on the fastball from last year. You love to see that. Getting good results on it, too. Getting good results on all his pitches so far this year. Made a couple of changes in the repertoire. He's throwing that changeup as a secondary pitch as to where it's normally the sinker. So it seems to be working for him. And Baltimore's been pretty good with starting pitching, man. They do a decent job over there. So maybe they've unlocked something here in Rogers. Long-term value, I couldn't tell you because Rogers himself could wind up hurt, could wind up with some performance issues. But hey, ride the wave at least now. 4% owned, as Matt mentioned, on Yahoo. And Trevor Rogers is pitching for those Baltimore Orioles now, in case you didn't know. But let's keep things moving here. Let's talk about Frankie Montas. He is back for those New York Mets. And hey, listen, he had a pretty good debut. Went out there, was against Atlanta. He went 5 innings. He got 5 strikeouts, no earned runs, and a 1.20 whip. And the big thing here is, guess who his next starts against? Those lowly Pirates. Matt and I can go out there and combine for 9 innings against the Pirates. I think if we really wanted to, we got in shape. Give us 2 weeks, we can get out there and do it. But listen, Montas, he former, pretty good pitcher, was with Oakland for a while, was with the Yanks for a bit, has some successful seasons. I wouldn't expect him to be great the rest of the way, but listen, if he can pitch to a high 3s, low 4s ERA, around a K per 9, 1.20 whip, might be useful in some of those deeper leagues. Only 5% owned, so he's out there in some 15s, some NL onlys, those situations. He's definitely going to be useful in those formats. Anything shallower than that, probably just throw him on the waiver on the watch list and kind of see how it develops over his next starts. Maybe add him for that Pirate start though if you really need a stream.
Yeah, in a pinch, that's the only time Frankie Montas is going to end up on my team. Deep league cut, maybe. NL only, sure. But outside of that, I ain't touching that guy with a 10-foot pole. I think that, quite honestly, this dude is so washed, it's not even funny. And I don't mean to have the haterade out, but it's one of those things where, like, I've been chasing this dragon for a while, and quite honestly, it's done. So for me, in like pinch starts or deep league cuts, that's really where Frankie Montas is relevant. Other than that, don't touch him. Let's move on. Let's talk about Christian Moore. Those Los Angeles Angels. He's playing about second base for them right now. And quite honestly, he had a monster week. 4 runs, 3 bombs, 6 ribs, batting 261 on this week. Had a really slow start, but he was a high-end second base prospect. You know, Drafted pretty highly in the MLB draft last year, and really made an impact this year before getting called up. 204 at bats, 31 runs, 8 doubles, 3 triples, 5 bombs, 32 ribs, 8 stolen bases. Walked 31 times to 65 strikeouts, batted 279 on the season. He looked really good. And, I'm really intrigued because last year's home run pace was even better, really showed off the power. 6 home runs and about 101 at bats. And then in college, the dude did have a powerhouse in terms of, cranking the ball and getting the ball out the park. So he's a really good prospect. The fact that he was able to thrust himself up this early after 1 year spent in the minors speaks volumes. But then again, the Angels have been pretty aggressive with their prospects as a whole. But I do have faith in the kid. He's somebody that I targeted in a lot of dynasty drafts this season. So I like Christian Moore hands down, and I think that he actually is going to have his ups and downs this season. But at the same time, you know what? You add him, you stream him in and out. When Simeon's hitting, you put Simeon in. When Moore is hitting, you put Moore in. Same thing with Ozzy Albies and other guys that aren't performing at second base. So Moore can give you a little bit of an option, and might get lucky and kind of be able to swap them out if they're hot on opposite weeks, things like that.
Yeah, Matt, you talked about that pop that Christian Moore has in that bat, starting to show it off a little bit. Went 2 for 4 on June 24th with 2 bombs and 3 RBIs. And guess what? Today, June 25th, as we're recording, Christian Moore was moved up to second in the lineup today. He was hitting ninth and moved up to second. The Angels got faith in him. And he hit 34 bomb skis in 2024 in college, and that was over 72 games and 296 at-bats. We know that the college is a different game, but listen, it just shows the potential of the kind of pop that Christian Moore has in that bat. And second base has been really, really tough this year. The kid's 6 foot, 210, and after he hit the game-winning home run, I saw the highlight. They ripped the kid's shirt off, and Christian Moore is just jacked. He's a big 6 foot 210. I'll say that. So I like Christian Moore. I'm going to try and add him anywhere I need some second base help, a little bit of pop. Batting average might not translate right away, but we'll see. There's some upside here. And then there's also going to be some upside for runs because he's been moved up to second in the lineup if he continues to stay there. Let's move into this next guy, second baseman as well, probably under more when I'm prioritizing pickups. But Nick Gonzalez, he's been around for a while. He's pretty consistent. He's doing his thing. Of course, it's tough when you're trying to tell anybody, telling you to pick up anybody from the Pirates. But in the 20 games Gonzalez has played so far this year, 316 batting average, 9 runs, 3 homers, 10 RBIs, second and short eligibility on Yahoo. Once again, 4% owned for Nick Gonzalez, who's been just red hot of late, 5 for 5 on June 23rd, went 4 for 10 in the doubleheader on June 19th against Detroit. And he's got some pop in that bat. The runs and RBIs might not be great. A little bit of a deeper league cut for you guys who can't find a second baseman in your NL onlys, your 15s, maybe even your deep 12s.
Yeah. I mean, deep league play. I'm not a fan, but you know what? Before I he's not even worth my time. In all honesty, he's just a deep league cut. So we're gonna move on.
Real today.
I am real. I'm just, you know what? Hey, welcome to Matt. But you know what? Before we even get into this next guy of Joe Adell and Jordan Beck, and to finish out and round out the show, we'll be back right after this.
All right, folks, summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action. Why not make it a little bit more thrilling? With FanDuel, you get in on the game while your friends are sunburned at the beach. I've been using FanDuel to track my favorite matchups, and the app always keeps it fresh with new daily promotions and fun ways to bet. It's so easy to use, fast to pay out, and makes every regular season game feel like must-watch events. Whether I'm placing a same-game parlay or watching a bet ride into the 9th inning, FanDuel makes it feel like I'm part of the action. New to FanDuel? New customers can just bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel today or visit FanDuel.com to /locked on to get started today. And all right, let's move on to this next guy here. Matt, no love for Nick Gonzalez. The haterade is out. Let's talk some Joe Adell. And listen, I feel like Joe Adell is kind of almost settled into this guy that, isn't going to help you in batting average, but there's pop in that bat, a little bit of speed here and there. He's still only 26, which is amazing to me. I feel like we've been waiting for Joe Adell to pan out for like 10 years. But, if in your deeper leagues, your 5 outfielders, those type of situations, Adell's 34% owned. He's been, once again, heating up of late. He had 3 consecutive homers in games from June 18th to June 20th. And like I said, there's speed, there's pop, outfield, especially I know in those 5-mans, it gets tough. He had a 2-home run game, Adell did on June 2nd, and he went 3 for 3 on June 7th with another 2 home runs. So the whole thing is he's got 16 homers in 72 games with 39 RBIs and 3 steals. It's not a bad pace. The 226 batting average and 28 runs leaves a bit to be desired there. But hey, if he's your 5th outfielder, if he's your bench guy in a deep 12 or a 15, it's not killing you. The waiver wire is just tough right now. Listen, guys, it's really, really tough right now. I know for us that play in for folks that play in shallower leagues, it might be a little bit easier. But when you're digging on the waiver wire and those 15s, man, you kind of need anything that's going to give you production. I think a guy like Joe Adell is going to fit a lineup that needs a little bit of power, stolen base every once in a while, and some RBIs.
Yeah, I mean, for starters, you can't pass up on a guy that's been hit 10 home runs over the last month. That's really just the key part, right? Like the big thing about this show is, if you're new to the show, you'll learn this too. It's not my batting average rule. That's another time. But it's, you can't pass up on a guy performing. You always got to ride the hot hand because you got to manufacture a win week in and week out. It's matchup to matchup unless you're, even in Roto, it's, compiling as much counting stats as you humanly can. So Joe Adell is doing it for us right now. May not be the most valuable in point slings and things like this, even though this past week he has. He is striking out 24% of the time, which is a career best for him in from what I'm seeing, but still not, getting the job done in those regards. Well, second best career season at strikeout rate, but he's still only walking at 6.7% of the time, which is definitely not doing you any justice. What I do like is the expected batting average is a lot better than what he's, showing up on the stat sheet. Is actually expected to be 264 versus 226. Average exit velocity is nothing to really gawk over, but it's still decent. I mean, and his max EV on the season is 112 miles per hour. You're definitely not mad at that either. So with Adell, the long-term value, unless the batting average starts turning around or he starts hitting more consistently now that we're, in June and now he's starting to really just go on a tear, isn't going to be there for me. And he's still going to have a very short leash on my team, but I'm adding him to see how long this hot run can last. And then we can talk about whether we're being patient or not. The 10 home runs over the last month is the most impressive thing about him right now. But let's move on. Let's talk about Jordan Beck over at Colorado Rockies. And he's a guy we've mentioned a couple times on the show. When he's hot, we definitely want him on our team. And when he's not, I really could care less. Let's put it that way. I don't mean to be so direct and things like that, but quite honestly, Beck doesn't do a lot for me in a lot of ways. But here we are. We're talking about him again. This past week, 6 runs, 2 bombs, 6 ribs, a stolen base, batting 346. Over the last 2 weeks, batting 319. But not much difference in the counting stats that would put him at an elite level. Only has about 2 home runs on the month. Through 96 at bats, batting 260, batting 269 on the year. Beck doesn't really hit the ball incredibly hard. He does, make good contact with the ball with how often he barrels and things like that. But it's just one of those things where he doesn't have the statute that really makes me get excited about that Colorado Rocky hitter, where I can say, okay, cool, this guy's going to crank out a whole bunch of home runs when he's at home. Obviously, he's a better streamer when that happens, but ultimately, I genuinely am not really looking forward to it. He is playing against the Dodgers over the next couple days, so I kind of want to get in on that action. Today he's playing against the Dodgers, then he goes to Milwaukee for the end of the weekend. So with Beck, just essentially just stream him until the end of the weekend and then call it a day.
Damn, Matt, really bringing a somber note to the pod here down the stretch, man.
Reality.
I like me some Jordan Beck, man. He's having a pretty good year. 68 games, 269 batting average, 38 runs, 10 homers, 28 RBIs, 9 steals. Obviously, as you mentioned, he's way better at home than he is away. In 33 games played at home, he's hitting 309. In 34 games played away, he's hitting 221. I will say this. Listen, 6 home runs away and 4 home runs at home, so the power split's pretty solid. It's not like he's just raking at cores with the power. So even if he's not home, he could still hit some home runs. Steals, 9 steals on the season isn't bad. He could have a 20-ish season in sights with 80 RBIs and 80 runs and like 65 RBIs.
I gave him too much credit in the runs, man. That team can't hit.
He's got 38 already. He can get there. I think he'll finish pretty close to those numbers if he can stay healthy. And he's a young kid where we've seen a little bit of a progression from him. First time really getting it out there in the bigs. And listen, he's hitting at the top of the lineup. He's been hitting leadoff. They moved him to third here and there. Good spots in the lineups for the young kid. Listen, is he going to be useful if you're playing in a 10-man league? Probably not. But if you're in a deep 12, and we keep saying that with some of these guys here, but it's the truth. You're not going to pick these guys up in a 10-man league if you're playing those. Most of our listeners, assumably play in 12-man leagues or deeper. So where this is going to be applicable, I like me some Jordan Beck. I think he's a little sneaky ad. He's been useful all year. 17% owned. He should be at least 30-40% owned. So if he's out there in your league, you need some help in speed, power, a little bit of batting average here and there. I like Jordan Beck. Let's move on to our last guy of the night. Let's talk about Wenzel Perez. Interesting player here, Detroit Tigers. Little of a outfielder, a utility guy, moves around a little bit, but only outfield eligibility on Yahoo. He's been good. 23 games played, 307 batting average, 15 runs, 6 homers, 15 RBIs, and a steal. He's been hot of late. Another juice to orange kind of guy. Apologize about that, but 5% owned on Yahoo. He's had multi-hit games in his last 2, including a home run on June 22nd, where he went 2 for 4 with 3 RBIs, including that homer. And then he had back-to-back homer games on the 15th and 17th. So I like what Wenzel Perez is bringing to the table. Needs some pop. You can go out there and snag him. Steals a bag every once in a while. And listen, the batting average has been solid through the first 23 for him this year. Not going to bank on him to be there all year. But once again, if you need some sneaky outfield help, you can't get Jordan Beck or, Christian Moore wasn't out there, who's not an outfielder, second baseman, but, just happened to miss out. Or even on a Joe Adell. Wenzel Perez is somebody you could sneak in there for a couple of weeks, and he might be able to help you. And listen, Detroit's been one of the best teams in baseball, if not the best. So you know what? He's the counting stats should stick if he can continue to hit.
Yeah, I mean, he's overachieving in the power if you look at just what he's done in the minors. But right now, you know what? Like I said earlier, there's nothing wrong about riding the hot hand. But I mean, hey, there's another rule I have, and that's essentially, batting average off the waiver wire, and that's essentially what we're getting here. So I'm going to add him, and let's see if he could keep this going. Maybe it's just this threshold of, hey, I figured a couple things out. I'm 25, and this is a year of I kind of break out too. I mean, not going to say like this is going to be a guy that we're talking about all season, but maybe is a subpar guy that we stream a lot more often than we thought about because he kind of wasn't even on my radar until Dom said, hey, he's going to be on the show today. So, when I hear Wenzel, I think of a pencil, and, that's really about it. So, I mean,
I think of Wetzel's Pretzels.
Yeah, exactly. You're really going to get there.
Listen, that could be a nickname. If he keeps it going, we're going to call him Wetzel's Pretzels.
All right. Now I'm going to call him the Pretz. But, when it comes to him, it is what it is. But again, everybody's been asking for deep league cuts. What can I do? How can I get the edge? Well, it's streaming guys like Wenzel's Pretzels and, being able to get a guy that's 5% owned and turning the, I would say a turd into at least a sellable item. So, Wenzel's Pretzels is a must add in those 15-man, AL only leagues. But guys, please like, subscribe, comment, rate, review, do everything you can to share this show. And, we love doing it for you each and every day. And, when you're done checking us out, check out our boy Sully over at Locked On MLB, where he's going to give you real baseball coverage. And if you want a little bit more than what we offer in this 30-minute podcast, join us on the Insider Track, where you're going to be able to get all those exclusive benefits only found on there. So that being said, guys, have a great rest of your day. Peace.